Um, Welcome our dear online guests and regular members. We are happy that you are with us this afternoon, and make your presence with us will be a blessing for your spiritual journey. A little bit of our order for the program this afternoon, and I have for you 3 lectures on 1 unit of the doctrine of sanctuary, and each seminar has 40 minutes. Then we have a break for tea or maybe juice, and then you have time for the questions in a foyer. Then we can do second seminar that will be much shorter than the first one, and the last one will be the highlight of the whole series, and you will have time to ask the questions. So for those who don't know me, and I think everyone is knowing me, but for the online viewers, if we never met before online, my name is Elena Scholtz, and South Africa is my home for more than 20 years. My family is with me. My son and my husband is my delight. And everything what I'm presenting afternoon is just by their help. And they do a great deal for me to help me out with everything what I put myself in which shoes. And then I'm very thankful for my family. And let's start with a prayer. Let's bow our heads. Lord Jesus, we're very thankful for you to be in your house. This Sabbath afternoon, we're very thankful that we can spend time in your word, spend time thinking of your dwelling, and spend time thinking how you ordered your children to create this dwelling. And now when we are in our life creating dwelling for you to be in our midst, bless us with your presence, O Lord, and teach us and guide us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. On a slide, which is introductory for the first lecture, you can see Incline Entrance Pavilion of Israel Museum. And it has incline up, and in Hebrew is alat, to go up. And in Greek is katabaino, anabaino, to go up to Jerusalem. Spiritual journey is always a path upwards. If you stand, you never stand on the same spot, you go backwards. It's always an effort to put up in order that to go up forward to God. And this is our constant journey as a pilgrims up to Jerusalem. We're marching up to Zion, and for that we have to put efforts. One well-known religious author said this quote: "The correct understanding of the administration of the heavenly sanctuary is foundation of our faith." Are you agree with me? Yes. And through the series, before you, what you saw online, you understand that definitely administration of the sanctuary is foundation of our faith. And she said this quote 1906, when the whole doctrine of sanctuary started to be working out. And 120 years passed since then. Major aspects of 28th doctrine of sanctuary was formulated. And as any science, and Dr. Bruce told us about neuroscience, leap forward in the last 5 years, covering everything what was discovered in the previous history of neuroscience. And any science in generally, biblical archaeology, 5 years of the development, they covered everything and did a breakthrough in a major aspect. Second temple period, Davidic kingdom, and they did so much in discovery of 5 years that the ones who ever neglected presence of David in the history can't say nothing against the evidence in archaeology. So is with any science in the world, especially now with the modern technologies. And my question now, when this was said 120 years ago, and theology is the science too. Moreover, theology is God's science, with the God being ahead of the science. What was done in 120 years on the doctrine of sanctuary? Since this time, pioneers put a milestone ahead in understanding of the doctrine. What was done? So sanctuary is a journey. It's a beautiful journey of science with God. And this is just a rhetorical question for us to ponder while we're listening to these presentations. For many of us, sanctuary is merely a symbolism. Symbolism comes from Greek word symbalo. Sim means with, balo means to throw. I throw with. What we do, we symbolically, typologically throw everything to Christ. It's all about Christ. All the aspects of sanctuary about Christ from different perspectives, isn't it? However, Christ-centered, it's still beautiful by however relict from the Moses time. It's done, it's been, it's done over, it doesn't exist. And if it's relic, how can be it relevant to us? So we think of sanctuary mostly like a Christ movement through the history. We think of blood movements and priest movements on Yom Kippur, but what do we know more about sanctuary? How does it relate to our personal life, our daily life, our understanding of how I have to move in a sanctuary? Does it relate to our thoughts when we wake up in the evening? And yes, unfortunately, most of the time, this is the picture of our generation, of our Christian generation. I experienced sanctuary in my personal life. And since then, I've never been the same. I absolutely love, dream, and I admire sanctuary with everything in my life. And my purpose to make it realistic for you, make it tangible, make it experiential, so you will understand what it means in real. Because sanctuary is the living reality of our lives. And in order to understand sanctuary, we have to experience it. For the ancient Israelites, it's not just a map where the priest has to enter, move, and come out. For the ancient Israelites, it's what they think when they wake up, and what they think how they're going to act in a daily life, and what's going to be, how it will relate them to the sanctuary. This was for the ancient Israelites. And sanctuary was experiential. It's a sense, it's your vision, it's your smell, it's your touch, it's your sound, it's everything, and three-dimensional in a full sense. 2 years ago, my family and me went to Israel for the trip, but started it from the time of COVID, when everyone went online and many friends found each other who never talked before. We also found each other, the research friends who were studying theology together. We came online and everyone was advanced in the studies and years and pastoring experiences. We came online and said, well, it's time to study together, as we used to do since 25 years ago of our theology studies. And they say, why not? And the first suggestion was to study sanctuary through Torah. That's what we did, week by week, with a deep dive into linguistic perspectives with one focus, sanctuary. And when you go in original language, reading the Old Testament, everything becomes alive. So it was with us. We studied and we couldn't stop. We're studying till now, third year, over and over. and that changed us. After a year of COVID finished, we decided to have a reunion together. And the first suggestion was Israel, to look at the sanctuary now with our own eyes. Because the two of our pastors were pastoring in Israel, many towns for more than 20 years. They knew everything and they could organize everything and organize archaeologists for us, places where the sanctuary was present, and talks and Bible talks. We were very happy to spend this time. And in Israel, we have two places where full-scale tabernacle Moses is present. One to the north, in a small town called Ariel in Samaria, and it's by Messianic and Sephardic Jews, presented and built with help of overseas donors. And you see me in front of that tabernacle. And then second one, very far in north, in Timna Park in Eliot. Both of them now, in the moment of war, is basically unreachable. I don't know if ever we'll be able to go back to Samaria, especially now when we're close to the war zones. And I'm very thankful that God put us just right in time before war broke. I can present everything to you. And all of these pictures as my personal journey from there on. Geometry, proportion, textile, scent, language, history, development of tabernacle into the temple, full sense and experience. And do you know that tabernacle encompasses everything in the Old Testament? Your ways, O Lord, in the sanctuary, Psalms 77. You know that that topic on sanctuary encompasses more than any topic of the Bible talks about, neither on spiritual life, neither on your spiritual journey, your prayer life, your communal aspect of leading the church. Nothing talks so much as about the sanctuary. 13 chapters in Genesis, 13 chapters in Numbers, 4 chapters in Exodus, and half of Leviticus talks about the sanctuary. 50 chapters all together. Can you imagine? We have in creationism only 2 chapters, and the whole science built on 2 chapters. Creationism is very important. But sanctuary talks about more than 50 direct chapters. I'm not talking about allusions. Allusions is every single psalm has an allusion, verse, or the thought toward the sanctuary. I'm not talking about big prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah. They all dreamt and they lived through the sanctuary. Sanctuary is the central topic of Tanakh, Old Testament. And 39 professional trades or skills were put together into building the tabernacle. Starts with metallurgy to the textile work to the leather, everything, 39 different ones involved in the building of the sanctuary. This is my sacred time. We could spend mornings, sunrise and sunset, when priests bringing the offering to the altar, we could spend in a most holy place. And this picture I took from the most holy place. This is my personal prayer, that you could also, not maybe in the full sense that I could revive it in my life, experience it. This is my personal prayer, that you could also experience sanctuary. That is the reason I put up an exhibit outside, that you can go and touch and see and smell, and to measure it according to your body size. And this is the tabernacle model that we built together with my family. Thank you, my husband, who helped to build it for me, invested our family savings. We built it 1:11 scale. 1:11 scale, full size, relating to the full body size. this is one of our stops in Samaria, in tiny, tiny town Itamar. And this elderly lady, very plain, very open lady, does miracles for tabernacle, for the temple. She makes curtains and she weaves and makes dresses for the priestful tribe, Levites, and curtains and the entrance section for the temple. And that work is amazing. The amount of information has to process, amount of knowledge that has to put in, and amount of the holy work, how it does, impressed me incredibly. And until now, I'm remembering where she is, and I do pray for her, not knowing what's going on with her in a war situation. And I have on my YouTube a number of videos about her and her work. If anyone wants to, you're welcome to check it. And this stop with our guide, Alex, by the signboard of the ancient tile Shiloh. And ancient tile Shiloh is the first place where tabernacle arrived after traveling in desert for 40 years. And 369 years tabernacle was stationed there, semi-permanent structure, until David later on conquered Jerusalem, was still under Jebusites. Jerusalem still stays pagan city for almost 400 years, and Shiloh is the central city for entire Israel. Here, Mishkan developed in a semi-permanent structure and became a center of Israel worship. Hannah prays for the son, and here she receives Samuel that grows up to become a prophet who would institute the kingdom of Israel. And here we come to listen about tabernacle. Here in state of Israel draws attention to the whole world to Mishkan, tabernacle, and hold yearly camporees and held archaeological sessions. Scott Skipling, who is the main archaeologist of the Shiloh, brings volunteers around the world, and this is my prayer to come one of these years to come and dig together tabernacle on this place. It was the archaeology session last year, but we're still hesitating to go now, praying for the war to be over. Go to Shiloh, says Jeremiah 7:12. Go to Shiloh where my name dwells. Shiloh was conquered by the Philistines, and the tabernacle was burnt, and the Ark of the Covenant, as you remember, traveled from there on to many places through Philistine and through other nations, until it found the home where David put it and later put in his temple. Here, Scott Skipling, who digging Shiloh for 13 years, found the remnants of the supporting material culture of that time of Joshua, and exact, precise description of the Joshua during Joshua time. He found 3 horns of the altar, and he found 3 ceramic pomegranates, which is absolutely groundbreaking. And everything was discovered there. It's the top of the archaeological discoveries. So he found the gates of a city where Eli was sitting when he heard the bad news that Ark being captured by the Philistines and his sons being killed. And here we come to Shiloh to reconnect with God. This is the, sorry for the quality, but I wanted to show you the map of the sanctuary of the tabernacle found. And we know from Talmud that tabernacle grew the stone walls, although the roof still remained leather, as in a time of desert. So strict east-west orientation, they dig Bible here. Since there's a priestly town, Leviticus 7 tells us that they would have to bring offerings to tabernacle. And the place where my feet stays, 4 feet down is the solid bones. And there's thousands of hundreds of solid bones, and they're all disproportional. Why they're disproportional? Who would give me a clue? What does Leviticus tells us about sacrifices? What is that? Has to be? Theologians among us? What shoulder has to be brought? Right shoulder, remember that. Right shoulder is the gift to the priest, and this is the priestly town. So it has to be only clean animal. And when the archaeology lab results came back, all of that, hundreds and hundreds of the right shoulders were all clean animals. Can you imagine? Sacred vessels. If you look to the right, if you look to the left, all these hills around where tabernacle stayed, right there where I'm standing, all of these hills were covered for 3 seasons of the year, for Sukkot, for Passover, and for Pentecost. We call it time of the Sukkot, Pentecost, and let's call it Pentecost. This time, all was covered with the pilgrims, 2 to 3 million pilgrims, all looking down in a bowl to tabernacle. All of them bringing their gifts and sacrifices to bring to God, and they bring it in a pot, clay vessels. And when they use it, they eat it or they bring it to the Lord. Then they break it. Why they break it? Because it's sacred. You can't use it second time anymore. You have to break it. All of these hills covered as archaeological evidence of worshipping God. And trucks of loads. On my exhibit, you will see them. 2 to 3,000 years old. And who knows, maybe the potter vessels were held by Anna. Or maybe by Eli, or maybe by Shmuel. And this is the miracles. Even archaeologists would not care anymore. There's a track loads of them. This is high priest precious and semi-precious stones from breastplate. You can see story of that, about that on my YouTube channel. Can talk about Shiloh for hours. And one of these highlights is the model, archaeological art. In Shiloh, we have a synagogue that built as a tabernacle. You are on a east-north corner, and you can see entrance complex, 5 poles. On your right, you see 20 poles, and there's golden braces indicate the metal of the tabernacle. You see 4 covers from the roof, which represent the covers of the tabernacle. And inside, everything symbolizes the tabernacle as well. Of course, the building is much more massive than the tabernacle is, but everything what you look, even the altar, golden altar, is there present to remind us. And the Ark of the Covenant, when the Torah scroll kept, is in front. And that's what you see from the top view. Talmud says to us that 2 top coverings, and that's what you see on your right, blue and the red, were intervened together. And that's what you see from the top. What do you think? What is your guess? What's in front of the building? That massive structure. Can you see the shape of the altar? Yes. Well, nobody brings the sacrifice now, but as the bridge takes you to the 2nd floor of the synagogue. Now, allow me to start with the main verse of the sanctuary. and I will read it for you in Hebrew. ועשו לי מקדש ושכנתי בתוכם. It says, let them make for me a sanctuary that I might dwell among them. And any topic on the sanctuary, you're supposed to start with this verse. And let's dwell in every word. ועשו, it means to make. Let them make. We have one word that we know, probably heard before. Bereshit bara Elohim. God created at the beginning. Created, and it's bara. To create out of nothing. But I have another word to create that interchangeable with bara is asa. Bara and asa in Tanakh interchangeable. And we read it in the beginning, God created and made all things. So he created and made. He created of nothing, and he put everything, his hands, into creation. So we imitate God's action as well. We also create when we make something. We say, we created many jobs for people. Your wife knows how to create comfort in a family. This artist created a masterpiece. And we're saying of making something, but we're saying created out of nothing. So God does ask us, as image of him, also start creating as he creates. So we also can create. And he says, make for me, create for me, asa for me, now as I created for you. Next word, mikdash. And mikdash is one of four main words for the sanctuary. Mikdash from the Hebrew word kodesh. And maybe you know kodesh is the holy or the holy place. Mi is the preposition of the space. Mikdash, the holy space in a certain area. Mikdash translated as the sanctuary. So, ועשו לי מקדש בשכנתי. בשכנתי, it means to dwell. שכן, it the neighbor in a modern Hebrew language. God wants to be a neighbor for us. He just wants to move in with us and to dwell together with us on a permanent basis. And betoham, the last word, means to be in the midst. Translation says to us, among them, but it's not correct. I'm not among them. I'm not betohan. I'm on the periphery of you. If I stay there in the middle, very center where you're sitting, then I will be betohanti. God doesn't say, I want to be somewhere in a corner of your dwelling. God says, I want to be in a very center. Very, very center. I want to be in the midst, in a central space of you. That's where Jesus says, where 2 or 3 in my name, he says, betohanti, I'm in a very center. God will not stay sideways from us. He won't not be by the door. He wants to be in the very center of our presence. That's what he asked Israelites to do. We also talk about sanctuary when we talk about birth sanctuary. When we talk about baby orphanage, we say sanctuary is something that dedicated for the certain purpose, for something special. Next word for sanctuary, and we translated tabernacle, it's mishkan, and you already heard that word from my lips. Mishkan is shekan, to dwell next door, to be present, to be always present. God can't live because he always wants to be with us present. And shekan, also known by us by Shekinah glory, presence of God. Shekan, to dwell. Shekinah glory. Next word is Ohel Moed. And Ohel Moed is a portable structure. Any tent that you pitch up for the camp meeting, any tent of the Bedouin times, and any tent where you come together and put that portable structure for the time being. So, tent of the festive gathering, tent of appointed times. And Moed comes only twice in the Old Testament. First time when God says, that let be lights on the firmament of the heaven, and to distinguish between the day and the night, and mark the appointed times, seasons, and the gathering. The first time God talks about Moed. What is Moed? Moed is the certain times given by God to his nation in order to gather together. And you know these times. And this is the time of Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, preceded by the Feast of the Trumpets and Yom Kippur, as the tent when everyone will come together 3 times a year, all males. Next one, and the last one which I will give you, tent of the testimony. What is the center of Mishkan? Tell me. The very center. Is it holy place? Is it the most holy place? Okay, just no. Okay, most holy place is the center of Mishkan. And what is the center of the most holy place? Ark of the Covenant. What is the center of the Ark of the Covenant? 10 Commandments. Is the place that housing the tablets, Aron Kadesh, the Ark of the Covenant, tablets of the testimony. This is the tent of the testimony, where the testimony is kept. 10 sayings, not 10 commandments, never used it in the Old Testament. 10 sayings, or the 10 proclamations, or 10 rules of the universe. Now we come closer to the structure of the tabernacle. I have to explain you about that royal cubit, which is kept in a Liverpool museum. This royal cubit is the Pharaoh cubit, which held in the museum was found, and it is 51 centimeter, 0.2. And this royal cubit is the measurement for the measuring anything in ancient time. We have different cubits. We have Babylonian cubit of 50.3 centimeters. We have Hebrew long cubit of 51 centimeters. We have common cubit. We have lots of different cubits through the history. And in the Middle Ages and even beginning of the 19th century, cubits were so popular that every town would have their own measurement. And if I say to you, what is cubit? Cubit is the space from your middle finger to your elbow bone. This is the measurement. This is your cubit, right? If we talk about royal cubit and it's bigger, 2 centimeters, it doesn't mean that the Pharaoh was bigger. He was more important. All his pyramids, all his tombs, and his palaces were much bigger than normal person. Not because he's bigger, he's just more important. And so if you ask me, what is the cubits that used for the tabernacle? Because in cubits we find all the measurements in Old Testament. Noah's Ark, Solomon Temple, and other measurements all come in cubits. What cubits did they use? And I will tell you one thing, and this is a very important thing to remember. When we talk about sanctuary, we can't translate the measurements from the old time to our time. Forget about centimeters, forget about meters, forget about inches. Anything what you read online, this is most probably just a guess. We don't know exactly the height of the ancient Israelites. We can't precisely measure the cubit of their time. We can have a common guess that's correct, but we'll be somewhere close 49, 51 centimeters. But what precisely, we don't know. I measured 10 people. I have cubit 48. My husband has a bit bigger. Everyone, if I measure now, you will come probably to 50 centimeters altogether. So this is the measurement I used for my tabernacle. Because this is your linear. This is your ruler. This is your ruling tape. And my measurement became a doll. This doll that you see in front, this is the measurement from my tabernacle. when you come to any country and you start measuring, all right, decent meal would cost me that and that amount of rent, decent drink will cost me that and that. But when you start living in a country, you forget about your transitions, You just relax and you just live. The same with tabernacle. When you come closer, you think, oh, okay, maybe centimeters, maybe. It doesn't work like that. With tabernacle, measurements is nothing. Comparison with a human body and proportions is everything. Measurements is nothing. Remember that. Dimensions God gave us, not his cubit, not his hand. Dimensions for his house is us, is you and me, is dimensions for his house. Your tabernacle height is not my tabernacle height. Your child tabernacle height is your child tabernacle height. And the tabernacle what Hollanders will build is not the same what tabernacle Filipinos will build. And we understand why. You have to remember first, number one secret of tabernacles or sanctuary. This is your personal space to be with God. And everything will be up to you. When you come and build your house and you want your bed to be done, but you're so tall and you're so big and none of the beds that you come is actually, and then you come to the build and it says, build for me a bed. Measure me and build it. That's what God does. He says, I'm going to measure you, your cubit, and that will be the measurement for your tabernacle. And this tabernacle is measured precisely to dimensions of the body size of the doll. Center of my presentation, Secrets of the Biblical Sanctuary. This is drawn short from Ariel Mishkan. You see the person, a tiny little priest in the middle of the 5 poles, and there's a visual division between 2 portions of the sanctuary. The first one, court, sacred part. Second one is the holy place, and inside, invisible, will be most holy place. And division it like 2 squares. And the first square will be run just that halfway through, where the path for the workers is. And this is more or less structural division. First part is the red one, where the center where the altar is. And the second part is the sacred part, where God dwelling is, where the portable structure of Mishkan present. And the center of the second part is the Ark of the Covenant. And this is 2 centers where very far, as much as more further from part of each, from one and another. One is the center of human world, and another one is the center from God's realm. And 2 on a furthest distance from each other. And this is the path for the priests to go from one center to another center, to bring blood from one part where God dwells, where human dwells, to bring blood where God's center is. Why gold, you would ask me? Gold is the common metal for all expression of all divinity in ancient world. Why is red, you would ask me? And red is the symbol of the humanity. Because where Adam got his name, Adam. And Adam, as you know, is the ground. And what color is the ground in Israel? Red. We have a red color even on Halbrecht Mountain. If you pick it up, if you wet it, you will see a red hue. Adam is the word for Adamah, which is soil, ground, or the dirt. And the third word, the same root, is dam, which means the blood. All 3 words has the root dam, red. And we have Edom, which the second name for Esau. Esau was red-haired man, very hairy man, and he was called Edom, Esau. So the red section of the tabernacle is about the color of this earth, color of human race. When you look at this picture, you see all tribes camping around tabernacle, and tabernacle will be very, very center. Many researchers trying to build a cross there, but it's not actually possible. You see the different tribes have different amount of people in the midst. One of the biggest one is Judah, and then we have Issachar, and we have a Shimon tribe, and the smallest one, Benjamin, and other ones. They had to camp around. And we have 4 zones of holiness. First one will be, we have 10 zones of holiness. First will be the Ark of the Covenant. Ark of the Covenant, second zone is the holy place, then the country courtyard, and then where Levites are, and then 200 cubits of 100 meters will be space open for anyone to walk. So this is the holy space. And then it would be Israelites camp, then foreign people who join the Exodus, and the very last one zone will be unclean people and sick people will camp outside. 10 zones of holiness. Orientation of tabernacle, east to west. Why east to west? Because you do not worship sun. Sun is your servant, will show you a path where to go. And the shadow that sun gives will be showing you the path where to go, east to west. All the temples of Egyptians and some of the temples of Greeks were built worshipping the sun. You're facing the sun, god Ra, not with the Israelite God. Exodus 33 says, when all people saw the pillar of cloud standing in the entrance of the tent, they would stand up and worship each one at the entrance of the tent. And on this picture, the artist put everything so close to each other, but you see the cloud that covering the tabernacle. So you can imagine staying by the tabernacle and camping by the tabernacle. And the time when Shekinah glory lifts up and we have to go, we have to be very quick. 22,000 Levites with no precise, each one responsible for each pole and for each hook and for each meter of the curtains. Each one in precision military that will put down the tent, in a half a day, the tent will be pitched up again, like a military organization. So you don't stay behind when Shekinah glory moves in. So 10 poles on the east side, they stay as the guardians. And 10 poles on the west side, 20 poles on the east, on the north, and on the south. And each pole, you see on my model, have the height of the human. How many cubits do we have in our height up there? Any guess? 4, exactly. It's a 4 precise 4 length of my arm. And if we lift up the hand, how many? 5, exactly. How many cubits like that? 4. 1, 2, 4. 4 cubits is the width, and 5 cubits is the height. That's exactly what is the height of the poles of the courtyard. There's a people standing around. How many people do you need to measure the width of the court? I will give you quickly answer. The 12 adults and 1 child. Copper bases below. Copper bases, remember, the earth. And this is the picture from the Israel Museum. And this amulets have an Egyptian origin, and the staffs as the pieces of the cult, and they are pre-Exodus time. In your Bible says it's the brass or the bronze, but more precise negotiate will be copper, because that's what we have as the archaeological evidence. Bronze only came much later with the Greeks, 700 later, and the brass it's composed of the copper and zinc together. So Temple Institute put it copper. So let's come to the 7 vessels of the sanctuary, wonder of construction. The first one that you see first thing when you enter the sanctuary is the altar of sacrifice. It's a huge amount. It's the human size item of the sanctuary. When you lay down, that is your item. That is not what God intended from beginning. And it's a smelly, ugly, and most non-attractive place of entire tabernacle. 5 to 5 cubits square, and if you lift your hands, you reach the top. And this is 2 our guides will show you what it means. It's a place where human end his life. There he has to associate himself with the lamb or any offerings that he brings. Killing him, he's saying, I'm killing myself. And this is 1/10 of the fence of the courtyard, 1/10 in the linear measurement. If you take the top view of the altar, it will be 1/10 of the courtyard. It's the tithes that we bring to God. So you see the ramp. Why is the ramp, you ask? An angle of the ramp, 16, 17 degrees, because we have to measure the distance between the northern part and the height of the tabernacle, because we have to carry a big pieces of meat upstairs. Remember that. And the Bible says that should not walk up by steps to my altar, that nakedness will not be exposed on that. That's why we're making the ramp. Weight of the construction, size of the channels for the water, size of the channels for the blood outlets, amount of ash removal, everything can be calculated and measured. From the weight of the altar, you can measure how many people can carry altar. 4 people on each side, 16 together. And this is the hottest place, and that's not naturally where you want to be. Butchery is not an attractive place for anyone, and there's a suffering. This is all what we created. This is the center of our world, center where God never wanted to be. And unfortunately, the path to God goes through altar. And that's what the priests and Levites has to do. They will meet you by the entrance, and they will receive your sacrifices. And that's the only place where you're allowed to. There's no further for you. And this is so high, you can't see further than this. And most people never experience further than altar in their lives, tabernacle. Remember that every item is not only content of the item, but the item itself is the symbol of Christ. Hebrew says, we have the altar. Not only the sin offering is the typological object, Christ, but we also have the vessel itself. Next one is the laver, kiyor, and it's round. We don't know anything. We don't know how big it is. We don't know how heavy it is. We only know this consists out of 2 parts, the stand and the round piece, and we only know that it stands between the entrance and between the altar. And laver represents the female part of the world, where altar represents the male with 4 horns, 4 wings, which is in the Bible, 4 angels, they're holding the corners. This is the male with all the square parts of the bodies. Leva represents the woman, male and female, stands in the human size, human part of the sanctuary. And this is the copper mirror from the woman that donated them in order that leva could be created. And this is the free gift offerings. They could see themselves if they're polished well. Now we can see Christ in a leva reflection. This is the ladies who ministered it to tabernacle. Position between the altar and the entrance, and every time when priest has to go from the entrance to the holy place, every time he can't miss washing his hands and the feet. And this is a death sentence if you do not do it. Every single time, going out, washing hands and feet, and naturally the face. Going back again, washing the hands and feet, and doing the priestly duty. How many milliliters? We don't know, but it's definitely not a bird bath, and it's not definitely not a little wash basin. Talmud says at least for 15 people to be fully washed, you probably need about 5 liters, isn't it, to wash your hair and full body. Count how many through day priest has to go in and out. This is quite a big vessel in a temple, in a sanctuary. And this is my favorite, menorah. This is very schematic, very simplified version, representation of menorah. And what does it remind you? Generally, if you first look, you have a child look in the menorah, what does it remind you? It's a tree. It's a tree that doesn't have a wood inside. Tree that has a stem and that has 7 branches, 6 branches and 7 lamps. But the tree doesn't have a wood inside. What kind of tree? Is it a tree, olive tree, or maybe almond tree, or maybe pomegranate tree? What kind of tree it is? It has almond flowers, as you see on in my vase. It has almond buds and almond fruits, tiny ones and the big ones as a decoration. What kind of tree is it? And it has olive oil on top. What of them? Maybe all of them. I have a lemon tree in my garden, and it keeps producing all through the year. And through the whole year, I can eat lemons. The same with the menorah. It has flowers. It has buds, tiny buds, like a little fruits, and it full fruits. It's an everlasting tree, eternal tree that represents Christ Himself, that ever brings us life and nourishment. Very intricate, very exquisite work of the menorah. And what else it can be? It can be 5 planets that visible with naked eye, sun and moon, many other things, 7 spirits of the Lord from Isaiah. It count to many other typological objects and Christ as the center. How do we count menorah lamps? Do we count as Greeks from the right, from the left to the right, or like Hebrews, from the right to the left, or any other way of counting menorah lamps? What do you think? Both ways. Very, very good path of thinking. Very good. This is the central one. It counts as 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the central is the Sabbath day. Because Sabbath is not the seventh day at the very last. Sabbath is the central day. When we live looking back to Sabbath till Wednesday and looking forward from Thursday to Sabbath day. And center is the Sabbath. Menorah, me is the space, and nor is the candle, light bulb, or light source. Oh, this is the candles that are arranged in a certain space. Menorah has such a detailed description, so if I would give you everyone a pen and a paper and ask you, even if you would read Hebrew perfectly, every single of you would draw your own menorah. Not a single one would repeat it. Such an intricate description, so it needed full staff members of the entire institute, Temple Institute, for 10 years to study all archaeological, historical, cultural, textological evidences. For 10 years, full-time paid staff to come up to the certain decision and recreate menorah. And this is a menorah that stands in the Jewish quarters, main menorah of Israel. 43 kilos of gold plated. But no one could repeat menorah that stayed in tabernacle. After God gave a description to Moses, Moses unfortunately failed to come back to any concrete decision because gold is very heavy metal, but in the same time it's very pliable. That whole construction never could hold 43 kilos of weight. It would collapse, by any means collapse under the weight. The pure gold can't hold the weight. How did they construct it? We don't know. It's a miracle. Moses, as Talmud says, came back, it's an oral tradition, came back to God and says, Lord, I don't know. God showed him again in a fire vision and says, this is. Moses came back to Holy Af and Bezalel and tried to explain them. Didn't come again. And he came back confessing before God, crying, saying, I don't know. And then God said to him, take an ingot of gold and throw it in the fire. He did it, and menorah came. And menorah stand. That's what we know. We don't know how menorah stayed, but we know it's a miracle. Miracle of God. Christ is a miracle. Whoever gives us light every day. 22 cups. Very difficult to recreate it. What kind of cups? Like a flower, like a cup that we drink tea. And why 22? God says, your word is the lamp unto my feet. Word can't exist without letters. Why 22? Hebrew alphabet had 22 letters. How can you write a word without letters? Every child in Israel will tell you why 22. And the height and the width, nothing said. Every little detail described, but nothing we know about the parameters. Parameters, you have to count yourself from your width and from your height. You have to meet with God face to face, eye to eye contact. They would put a 3 steps ladder in order to clean the wicks and to lit up the candles. And this is the order of the high priest only. 7 flasks of pure quality oil that doesn't create the smoke will be waiting for the high priest to do his morning and the evening duties. 12 hours of burning oil constantly from the morning till the evening, through the night, again till morning. Does menorah light somebody keep the light for somebody at night? Is anyone at night in tabernacle? Not a single soul. It means menorah is not just for us. Menorah is representing eternal life, light that never stops shining. And a westward lamp that facing the curtain of the most holy place would never go out of the duty. Will always be simmering, but will never get out of the light. This is me standing in front of the main menorah of Israel, behind the bulletproof glass, very sophisticated security system. And we created it 3.5 cubits height, almost 4 cubits width, that you can measure yourself against this menorah. And when we play it in our model, eternal light just goes on and on and on and never goes out. Golden panels will reflect the light eternally for you. Next one. Just 2 more left. Lehem panim, breadth of the faces, breadth of the presence, before the face of the Lord. And you will ask me what type of construction it is? You will be surprised. This is the lehem panim, bread of his presence. Why? Because every bread, and you would see it on my table, I baked it for you. Every bread made out of 2/10 of ephah, which is 3.8 kilos of flour only, plus oil and plus water, more than 5.5 kilos of each bread. And you will understand. It's not only one Levite, not only one high priest, it's the whole army of them. They're all fed from there. 12 of them. And the table, you check it, is carried with all 12 loaves, never be taken out, on a table. Carried not on a tar road, carried through off-roads. How can they stand without falling off and falling up and down? How can they stand if they don't have a support structure? There's no ways you can carry them. Plus, they have to be covered. Plus, they have to be covered in few layers. And this is the God of the presence, a bread of the presence. Table, 2 cubits, exactly like that. When you hold someone, or sometimes they put bread as a welcoming item for welcoming guests. That exactly is God welcoming us in his tabernacle, holding bread for us. That's exactly the size of the table. 1 distance of your arm, and 2 counts for the length. So that probably is more comforting for your eyes to have this type of presentation, but it's far from the truth. So your tribe will bake bread every Friday, and the chief of the tribe will bring the bread as a representative of every single of you, presenting the tribe. He would bring it before the Lord, saying, your face, bread of the presence, bread of the faces, your face is always there in front of the Lord. You're always there in the face of this bread. And they all sit as the representatives, as the chiefs. They sit there the whole week. And next week, Sabbath afternoon, the Levites will bring it in a certain procession and exchange it for the fresh loaves. I did the experiment. For 7 days, I baked the bread and I put it in a container that doesn't have any extra air, and I sprinkled with the frankincense, as I said, and bread is perfectly fresh and perfectly well for 7 days. And that's what they would find it. Perfectly well and even more softer than they put it first and on Sabbath. And every bread would have a certain sign of the tribe that they bring. Shimon will bring with a tower, Gad with the tents, Judah and Levites with 10 stones, donkey picture probably will be Sakar snake for Dan, wolf for Benjamin, and so on. And this is the golden table of showbread in Temple Institute, ready to put in a temple. That's how it looks like, my picture. And as we're measuring the bread, this is just a toy, but that's the width of the bread. In this case, it's represented as a square. Golden altar, Mizbeach Zahav, made from the shittim wood and overlaid with gold. Also has crown as the table of showbread, and another third item has a crown in tabernacle. Which one? Ark of the Covenant, correct. What are 3 items, 3 gifts wise men brought to royal child? Yes, they brought gold, incense, and myrrh. So that all 3 items has the crown. King is the ark, priest is the bread, and Mizbeach, the altar of incense, has also golden crown. And they're all related to the royal child. Horns of the golden altar relate to to this big brother that stands in the courtyard. Blood will be the same item that they both receive. And content of the vessel. Secret never to be represented mixture of the perfume. White cloud will be rising up. Nobody would know the recipe. French perfumers will try to recreate it. And of course, we never know full compound of mixture. And very fine deviation would create completely different perfumes. But what they came, the results, they said in 20 seconds, the molecule is already in your bloodstream and start affecting. They would never go sick. They would constantly, that smell, but constantly presented through their hair into their outfit in the entire body. They would smell in. That's a beautiful perfume. Remember, the smell was in the courtyard, and the smell is in a holy place. And now we're moving into the most holy place. Hidden room, cul-de-sac, Kodesh Kodeshim, double or most holy, or the most holy place, center of Mishkan. The heart, where the treasure box Aron Kadesh kept. And this is the treasure of the entire universe. Sapphire tablets with the law and the central message from the Lord Almighty Himself. What changes in the environment? When you're hot outside in the desert, you go into the holy place and you feel nice, you feel cool, you feel relaxed. And then when you move into the most holy place, suddenly it becomes cooler. And they measured even the dew would come up at night, such a drastic change of the temperature. And our 2 guides are measuring the ark. What is the width? The width is 1.5. You can see they're measuring 1 arm and 1 span, which is the half of the cubit. And what is the length? Length is a 2.5. And this is not a human size, because we never can cut half of our arm. Is this the only item in the entire sanctuary that has fractions in their measurements? Because it doesn't belong to the human world, and neither measured in the human world. It's outside of this world and keeps outside of this world laws. If you divide 2.5 to 1.5, the length to the width, you would come to 1.6, and this called golden ratio. As you know, golden ratio is a Fibonacci sequence, is the beauty number, the most beautiful number in entire world, spiral galaxies, flower buds, ocean waves, fern heads, seashells, snail shells, every beauty in the world will have a Fibonacci number. This is the most beautiful item in the entire universe, contains there. And we come to the width of the golden panels. Width of the golden panel, it's a width of the ark, 1.5. Why? Because it's us. It's us who is building the Mishkan. It's us who is building the tabernacle. We are the tabernacle. 1.5. It's the width of me and you. Why 1.5? We are only 1 cubit. If you count from here, from shoulder to shoulder, it's only 1 cubit. Why 1.5? Because if you stay like that, you can't move. You're just stuck. If you just relax and leave your arms down, stay on ease, that's what we are in the church. We stay on ease in such a space to each other that not a blade of the knife will go in between. What's inside of the golden panels? Acacia wood, exactly. And what is acacia wood? This is the acacia wood. This is us. Me and you. That's who we are in real nature. The crown of thorns. And God makes us beautiful like this. He covers us with His gold. He polishes us. He puts us together so precisely close to each other that nobody can get through. And we stay together, shoulder to shoulder, absolutely free personal freedom, and we're comfortable with each other. Absolutely comfortable in a personal space. And that's how we can organize the tabernacle. What you see on top, this is the top view from the most holy place. You see 6 boards and 2 halves. You see the tiny cut off, 2 halves and 6 boards. This is the most western side, part of the tabernacle. And the covers. Covers I have there in front of you, and the covers actually created to cover the tabernacle completely. And the covers also related to the human size. That's who we are. We connected with 50 hooks together, one by one, that we are standing together. Unity, a heart, one as one. A heart that God says you have to put a heart, unity as one. 3 times we relate a heart to in Bible. One is a heart, God is a heart. God in Trinity is a heart to each other. He is one. Second time what Bible talks about the heart is the male and female when they join together and they glue together. It will be one as a heart. And the third time, tabernacle will be one as the holy and most holy place together. And we will talk about symbolism of that. And the last 2, you can see the view from the most holy place into the holy place, how there are a heart that's stitched in the middle. 50 hooks and 50 threads that combine together. Paul knew very well how to make it. He's the tent maker. He knew precisely about every hook and every item, how tabernacle kept unity together. This is the hooks, and they you can see in front of them ready. Last one, actually, 4 covers of the tabernacle that you see in front of you, the most beautiful woven one out of 4 different colors. Next one is the linen one. The wool one, the white one. Next one is the leather, red one. Sorry, my husband put it other way around. And the blue one is the top one, tahash, most most mysterious cover of the tabernacle. In many translations, they translate it completely different. You can read about badger and sea cow and the dolphin and the sea and the porpoise, and you can do the many guesses. But one thing we know, this extinct animal that we don't have anymore. And the colors, we don't know. God receives all colors to himself, and he covers himself as we cover with our skin. That color of the skin doesn't matter. He receives any color, and this is the reason why he kept it secret. So that covers 45 degrees, that you have space in between the covers and the tent. We kept some items there. And 4 covers represents 4 gospels. Maybe Matthew, man, lion, Mark, ox, Luke, and whom I missed. Yeah, and John as the eagle. And this is the end for the first lecture. I hope you will have a little bit of rest. Sorry for taking it long, but the second lecture will be much shorter. Thank you very much. You can have a drink.